Most men are in business and operating in business from the consciousness and the energetic capacity of a little boy. Because when it comes to trauma, I'd invested hundreds of thousands of dollars on myself, on my journey, all of it. Intellectually understood trauma. I understood healing. I understood personal growth, personal development. But beneath all of that was still this little boy. He was yearning for something outside of him to feel good. He was yearning for a relationship to soothe him and regulate him and support him emotionally.
Every man reaches a point where a strategy isn't the answer, where no amount of success can fix what's broken inside. In this episode, I sit down with Ryan Moresby-White, a high-performance coach helping men heal, evolve, and lead from a deeper place. We talk about healing the boy so the man can rise, the internal work that creates real peace, not just more achievement, and why the next level of your life won't come from doing more, but from becoming more. If you've been carrying silent weight for too long, this podcast is for you.
I think there's like a very clear line between when an entrepreneur starts, when he grows, and when he scales. And it's usually not the business model, it's not the products, it's not the leads they need. Usually it's themselves. How have you found limiting beliefs, internal beliefs, holding high achievers and entrepreneurs back?
Yeah. Look, I'm not a business coach, and I also have coached some highly financially successful men. And typically they come to me when they're starting to recognize this sense of disconnection from themselves. And every time and time again, even especially through my own journey and like the path that I've been on to creating, the success that I've created so far, has come back to my own internal dialogue and my self-image, like how I see myself, my identity. So with that, beneath all of that is the limiting beliefs that men hold about themselves as to what they believe is possible, truly possible, what they can create. But for the most part, possible of what they actually believe they're inherently worthy of. And that's been the biggest disconnect I've experienced in men and myself especially. And the more I focused on me coming back to those parts of myself that felt disconnected from the abundant nature of who we are, like 1 in 400 trillion chance of us being born, like the fact that we're here alive today. You look at a child, like they ask for their needs. They ask for what they want. They dream big. They go after what they want. They'll fight for what they want. Yeah, because they know deep down in their core, they're inherently worthy of it. And at some stage we disconnect from that. And it's coming back to that original nature of knowing that who we are inherently at our core is worthy of everything that we want and more.
Do you think that everyone is inherently abundant, but then they become scarce resources, scarcity through time, and then they have to rework that? Because people would look at an entrepreneur and think, oh, they're the ones that are most needing of things.
Yeah, I would say a lot of entrepreneurs, including myself, have been the ones who have been most wounded, and they've needed to fight their way through life. Or it's typically our core wounds is how we then show up in the world. Like you look at some of the most successful people in like the YouTube space, or have the most followers on Instagram or whatever. I'm sure at some point there was a core wound of them wanting to be seen, right? And they've turned that core wound into purpose, right? Or the core wound of not feeling good enough to then creating a level of success financially to finally feel good enough. Yeah.
But is that core wound across everyone? That's the thing, right? Is that, do we just look at the outliers of success of the guys who've gone and done it and maybe solved their own internal problems? Or does everyone have this, but the guy that works in Tesco, he does not have his wounds being held or being solved, right? He's like, is this something that's inherent?
Just want to take one quick break to ask you one question. Have you been enjoying these episodes? Because if you have, I'd really appreciate it if you subscribe to the channel so that more people can see these episodes and be influenced to build an online business this year. Thank you.
Yeah. Look, we're supposed to be wounded in childhood. And reason being is because that initiates us onto the journey of becoming whoever it is that we need to be in order to be the person who's going to actually to come back to being that person that they were actually placed on this earth to be.
Yeah.
Right. So overcoming those core wounds is actually going to shape you into the person that you were placed on this earth to be. And coming back to your question there, I believe it's the power of environment, right? When you're around the right people, around the right environment, have the right information, the right resources, the right tools, those are the people who actually lean in and go on their hero's journey and turn that pain into their purpose. But so many people, so many men just live life just day by day, and they don't truly actualize their potential. They don't truly discover what it is that they could actually create in this world if they really face themselves.
Why is that?
Because
do
it's
you think-
painful.
And why? How do they soothe?
How do they work?
How do they soothe that wound externally? What is it to do? Is it drink, drugs? Because I have a background in that, and we can talk about that in detail too, right? Even my own perspective on it.
Yeah.
But would you look at those things as the surface level band-aids that people are utilizing versus changing your environment, going to Bali, moving here, restarting, re-going, looking at your life? Like, how deep does that go?
The theme here of what I feel that we're speaking into is men wanting to create a level of success and not having the self-image, the self-belief, and the willpower within themselves to actually go out there and create that. Now, this is really the journey from boy to man to leader in business. Business is one of the most spiritual journeys that you will ever go on. Because in order for you to actually face your potential and become the man that's going to create that level of success or that level of impact in the world, it takes for you to fucking face yourself. And the more depth a man is willing to uncover, and the more a man's willing to face himself in his depth, that's where he's going to come face to face with his potential. Now, as I shared, like the boy to man to leader, most men, most people, but I'm speaking of men specifically, most men are in business and operating in business from the consciousness and the energetic capacity of a little boy. Because when it comes to trauma, until we resolve that unresolved energy in the body, it stays stuck and frozen in the body. That's what energy is. That's what trauma is. When we didn't have the safety for that emotion to be felt, to be processed, or we didn't have the tools and the resources in our environment to process whatever it was that we're feeling, or if we didn't have our core emotional needs met, we become stuck and frozen in that state of consciousness. We don't progress past that. Reason being is because we're taken out of our childhood. And when we're taken out of our childhood, we don't gain the strengths we were supposed to gain by just being a fucking child.
What would you determine as trauma? Like, what is the line there? Or even if there is a line, like, when is it trauma versus what's the line? Let's walk through that kind of philosophy, because I would think that a lot of guys struggle with identifying that something in their childhood is traumatic.
Yeah.
Speaking from someone, as I mentioned to you before, who's gone through extremely traumatic things that I pretended to myself was not true.
Yep.
Physical abuse, emotional abuse, manipulation, psychological warfare, like all these things that I had gone through as a child that I had just presumed was normal until I had left Ireland, gone through the process, I gave up alcohol, I gave up drugs, I went through all that process, and then I got hit in the face being like, hey, 7-year-old, 13-year-old, 15-year-old, that is not okay. And then for me, then there's this clash, which is, was that trauma or was it not? Should I say that? Should I not say that?
One of the biggest issues when it comes to trauma, especially developmental trauma that happens over a period of time in childhood, is we don't know the difference between emotional abuse and love. That's the problem, because we don't have any other reference of what love actually is or safe love actually is. We only know, because of what we've received, we only know emotional abuse. And we think that that is normal. We think that's what love actually is until we realize it's not.
Can you explain that?
So let's say, and there's two kinds of trauma. There's big T trauma which is a very specific event that happened, like a death, or maybe you witnessed someone die, or maybe you were in a natural disaster, something like that, where it's a big event that happens, a capital T trauma. Then we have the lowercase t trauma, which is the subtle trauma that happens over time. And sometimes that can be worse because you can't put your finger on it.
Well, this is the thing, is the fact that I have a lot of very successful friends.
Yeah.
And friends, network, whatever I want to say. And I know guys from America, because America has a lot of stuff in extremities. It's just extreme, right? That, they grew up with like, let's say a father that beat them silly, all this kind of stuff. That's very obvious, $7 a month, like very, very extreme cases. So then when you take that into a setting, let's say in a more developed country, or another developed country, people can't say that they had that level of severity. So therefore it's not traumatic, right? It's the small, subtle things. It's like not being tended to. It's the passive aggressive comments. It's all these little things, which is literally what happened to me, by the way. It's like these compounded things, but X person helps you out in this way, so they were good to you, no? And like that's the problem that I've had, personally, which is I learned this from Ryan Moresby, and I'd like to hear your thoughts on this, which is the positives and negatives of someone is mutually exclusive. Someone can do something nice for you. They can bring you to football practice. They can take you to the library, and it stacks over here. But then they can do a bunch of bad shit to you over here, and that stacks here too. These are mutually exclusive, and that person still does all the bad things. So it's why one of the reasons why people get back into a bad relationship with an ex, because they're like, oh, like she was so nice to me. She was so good. She used to bring me coffee in the morning, but she was also like X, Y, Z.
Yep.
And people only remember the good parts, and they don't remember the bad parts. And then you get back in a relationship, you're like, Jesus Christ.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's how Hormozy phrased it to me around like parents and family and broader family.
Yeah.
Which is like, yeah, they did good things, but they also have a mountain of bad things that they hit you over the head with.
Yeah. No one escaped childhood without a few cuts. We all got wounded in some way. And exactly what you shared there, that is exactly what I was speaking about, where we don't know any different. We don't know the difference between emotional abuse and real love, because we don't have any other representation of what that is until we're faced with that. And we go, oh, wow, like that actually wasn't okay. That actually wasn't healthy. And like I shared, that small t trauma is this subtle trauma that happens over time. But basically what trauma is an event or an experience where it's too much, too fast, too soon for our nervous system to process or to complete the emotion that's seeking to be felt. And it's an overwhelming experience for the nervous system. So we go into shutdown, we go into fight, or we go into flight, and we stay stuck and frozen in that. We're stuck in a state of survival from there onwards.
In terms of stuck in the state of survival, in what way? Does that mean you mean like for decades, for years?
So in that moment, and I'll share my journey, my story, and how this has played out for me, was imagine for a moment this little boy that just had so much passion, energy, and love to give. Like as a boy, I gave my heart. I loved asking questions. I was so curious. I was so expressive. I was passionate about everything I did. And because I had so much energy, that was a lot for my parents. And I get that. They had a lot going on. We migrated from South Africa to Australia, right? I couldn't even imagine, the stress that they were going through to try and make it here in another country. And with that amount of energy that I had as a boy, bringing that to my parents after they've had a big day at work, it would get shut down and it'd be too much for them. So this little boy, right, over a long period of time starts to feel that who I am, my expression, who I am at my core, my love, my heart is too much. And it's going to continuously get shut down, right, or rejected, or it's not going to be received by the people I love most. So I'd minimize my expression because I felt that I was too much. So in that moment, or not in that moment, but over that period of time, my nervous system started to feel that this is where we become stuck in a state of survival. is it's more important for us to be loved, liked, accepted by our parents. Our parents are a God to us, right? They are the sole representation of love, of God, right? We as children are solely dependent on them because we don't see life through our own eyes as children. We see it through our parents' eyes. Because we are a reflection of them.
So when they bring aspects of scarcity, inadequacy, lack of X, lack of Y, we perceive that, we bring that into existence.
Yep. So I perceived my parents' emotional overwhelm as if there's something inherently wrong with me. So I must change myself and be someone other than myself in order to be loved and liked. What that looks like in business is me being inauthentic to myself and just trying to be like every other fucking coach in the entire world instead of just being myself.
There's so much to think about this, man. I think particularly on the belief side, like that's when the person, the entrepreneur, whoever it is, they inherit all of those limiting beliefs in terms of like, look, money is not scarce and you need to struggle and you need to work super hard. You need to over-index on hard work versus like being intelligent and learning things, and just even the simple things like systems and leverage, just that's not given to us, which is obvious. But I mean, I literally thought that money wasn't possible because I never had anything, right? And I thought that it was just impossible. And then it was only until the last couple of years where I was like, oh, well, on the internet, you can do this and it will create that I had broken all the beliefs. So the stuff that I thought was true all became inaccurate, right? And that could start with the business side. It could start with the friendship side. Who's in your corner, who's not in your corner, who's holding you back, right? Initially with the parents, then with the friends. A lot of them, dude, you could double tap on like even the things that you're being told by the government, even things that are being passed down by politicians. I just had believed a bunch of these things. And then when I had seen them for myself or discovered it for myself, I realized it was all bullshit. And it's similar with relationships. My wife now, who was my girlfriend once upon a time, she literally said it to me that like the way that I was carrying myself that I'd learned from my parents, it wasn't normal. It's not normal to have these arguments, not normal to have these scream fests. And I had just observed through my environment and through, Ireland's very similar to Australia, dude. Like it's same culture, just drink, party, scream, right? It's the same concoction. To the degree that I had believed that stuff was just true until I had pulled myself completely outside of it.
Yep. With that, I feel there's so much there around. So beneath the limiting beliefs that we have in business around money, around creating success, around our paradigm of what's possible is typically the unresolved either shame of the little boy who feels that he's not enough, that he's not good enough, that he's not worthy to actually create that, or the childhood that little boy didn't have, where he gained the strengths of being able to be in his curiosity. And like, think of the energy of a child. They're curious. They try things. They don't care if they fail. They just try again, right? They go after what they want. They're curious about the world. Like they're very intuitive. They have a very strong felt sense. It's like these are the strengths that we don't gain when we are taken out of our childhood because of this unresolved trauma. So then you get into business and you have to start working through a lot of these limitations that are actually preventing you from going out there and creating what it is that you want. Because like you look at some of the most successful people or some of the stupid, like the most dumb people, because they don't think, they just act. Right. And when we overthink things, typically that's the protection within us that's fearful of what's going to happen if we fail.
Do you think that there's an argument for people overanalyzing, overthinking, overworking on themselves that's actually prevented them to actually just execute.
Yes. And typically someone who overanalyzes, overthinks, and feels like they have to keep doing the work on themselves is potentially that little boy who feels that there's something inherently wrong with him, right? Or his brain had to constantly look for threats all of the time. So he becomes a man who's so stuck in his head, right? Who's so hyper vigilant of all of these potential things that could go wrong, where his whole life is just a state of fear. He's living in such a state of fear where he can't actually just enjoy what it is that he's building or whatever it is that he's creating. So like beneath all of this is the unresolved, like the trauma of the boy. And until we actually go back in and complete that, because that's what trauma is, right? It's an incomplete process. It's emotion that's stuck in the body that hasn't had the safety or the space to actually be felt and processed. So when we go back in and actually complete the process of the unresolved pain that we store in our body, then we overcome that trauma and it no longer has power over us. And the beautiful part about that as well is your life has been built upon the foundation of that trauma. Every decision you've made, everything that's led you up to right now sitting here in this chair, me sitting right now in this chair, has been from the foundation of the boy. Because that little boy was once you. That little boy was once me. And every single moment since I was a child, like that's led me up to right now sitting here in this chair. That little boy was once a part of you and is still a part of you. Right? We were once him. And our life has been built upon the foundation of that. And until you resolve that unresolved trauma of that little boy, your life will continue to be on the foundations of that little boy. And this is why men lack the emotional capacity in business. They get stressed, they get overwhelmed. They feel like no matter how much they do, it's never enough. Or they feel like whatever they actually want to create is just not achievable. Because let's say the unresolved, when a little boy didn't receive the love and the nurturing and the safety that he needed in childhood to be in his own emotional experience, he doesn't develop the skill set of self-soothing and regulating his emotions. So he then builds a business where he's extremely stressed out every single day and he has no idea what to do with those emotions or that built up stress or overwhelm or frustration. So typically he leans on a relationship to make him feel better. He leans on a woman or a partner and gives them the responsibility of making him feel better. This is where he seeks for things outside of him to feel better. Caffeine, vaping, smoking, drugs, drinking, all of this. It's a quick outlet. But if you think of like a pressure cooker, that thing is building pressure over time and eventually it needs a release. Otherwise, it'll just explode. And those things are just a release on the pressure valve of the pressure cooker. But nothing's actually happening because you release the pressure and it builds up again. And then you get to the breaking point of you got to release that pressure. When we go back and actually discharge the energy of the unresolved trauma in our body based on what we experienced in childhood, what we're doing is we're going to the wall and we're flicking it off on the wall and we're unplugging the pressure cooker. So that pressure is no longer unconsciously building beneath the surface, which then leads to this overwhelm in business or in relationships.
How do you heal that trauma?
Great question. Safety. By creating a safe enough space for a man to go into the parts of himself that he's been resisting or pushing away or neglecting his entire life. And for me, that's been my deepest teacher, has been me leaning into feeling and facing my grief. The grief of the love that I didn't receive, the grief of the childhood that I didn't have, the grief of everything that's happened because of this little boy who felt that who he is at his core is inherently broken or there's something wrong with him. The grief of that, of wow, like, you know, that's really sad.
Before we go any further, I have one question for you. Do you want to generate more leads for your business? Well, I've put together an entire system how anyone can use a podcast to generate more leads for their business. And the best part is you don't even need a podcast to get started. I've created an entire guide and framework for you to be able to get more guests, more clients, more customers, more people in your pipeline and generate more revenue. This exact system is available right in the description down below, and you'll be able to leverage a podcast to generate more leads for your business and be able to increase your exposure, increase your authority, and increase your influence in your industry. So check that out right down below.
What's the level of problem awareness? Because one thing I even like maybe observe in myself is that I don't necessarily feel a lack, but I feel like a never-ending burn of drive. Like I don't take breaks. I don't really need breaks. I'm not really like clinging for the next penny, but I do it from more of an infinite game perspective, which is like, I just like what I'm doing. I like building. I like doing it every day. Now, is it difficult? Yes. Is it tiring? Yes. Is it stressful? Yes. But I mean, I couldn't imagine myself sitting in Batuba Long Beach just chilling, right?
Yeah.
It's not inherently there.
Yeah.
So what's the levels of problem awareness to be like, oh, damn, that's not something that's been resolved, right? Because question for you is like, what if you don't solve the problem, but you become incredibly successful without it?
I've worked with men who've exited their company for $500 million. A few months later, lost themselves. They come to me. I'm riddled with anxiety. My relationship, my marriage is breaking down. I've lost myself. I'm reactive. I'm shut down. It's like my life's imploding. And it's because he finally got to the end of what it was that he thought he wanted and realized that at the end of it, beneath all of it, his entire life, the drive behind all of it was this little boy who was still seeking his dad's approval. So he exited for $500 million and it wasn't it. It just didn't feel like anything. It didn't feel like it was enough. And beneath that was that unresolved trauma and energy. Now, here's the thing. When you're operating from the consciousness of the wounded boy, you're in a state of survival. So let's say you're building a business from the place of this little boy who feels like he needs to prove himself in order to be loved, or that he needs to create a level of success in order to be seen or validated, or to feel like he has some value and worth in the world. Because in childhood, he didn't have his core emotional needs reflected back to him, right? He then gets to the end of the path, and the whole journey has been built on this. It's fear. So it's operating from a place of fear every single day. He's living in a state of survival and activation, right? Then he gets to the end, and then that happens. Now, the difference is that, and I feel like a piece beneath your question of what you're asking is, you mentioned, I don't just want to go like sit on the beach and chill. Like I still want to drive. I still want to have this drive. I still want to create success. So what's the point of healing this if, I'm going to lose that?
It's almost how does someone identify that they need that help? Because it's levels of problem awareness.
Yep.
We chatted earlier about your business.
Yep.
I can look at it like it's like a mathematical equation, but it's very difficult for someone to look at themselves that way. And also there's no scorecard or scoreboard as how things are operating internally, especially up here or here. There's no dashboard, right? So someone has to come. So the whole logic with this is you have to hit rock bottom. People hit rock bottom to realize this stuff, but you don't need to hit rock bottom to make those changes.
Yeah.
And guys come to us for their business for their content when they've hit rock bottom. But it's like, you don't have to be in extreme pain to fix the problem.
Yeah.
That's my kind of idea, because I always look at things through levels of problem of awareness. Because for a lot of guys listening to this, they're like, oh, I'm fine. But they're deeply insecure. They have these deep wounds. They don't know how to make the shift. And then if we put together a plan, which you will for people, they don't know that they need it. Right. And it's kind of like, it's like, to keep it very simple, it's like when you speak to someone who's overweight and they don't think that they have an overweight problem.
Yeah.
Because they played high school rugby.
Yeah. It's
like, bro, you are literally on the verge of obesity from a scale, but you don't have that level of awareness for you, but it's literally in the mirror. So if they can't see that, then I think a big challenge you have is to get people to see it inside of them.
Yep. So as you've created a level of success, I've created a level of success. And then you also know that probably the most successful people that you know as well that have created massive success, majority of that is the more that they've actually worked on themselves.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. So by listening to this podcast, this is the invitation. This is a subtle invitation, because here's the thing. The universe will whisper at you before it fucking yells at you. Right?
Yeah.
And this could be a whisper. And here's the thing. People know, there's things, that there's things that need to be worked on that you've been like, I know someone listening to this right now, they're like, oh, there's that one thing that I know that I've been doing for so long. That it's a habit, it's a behavior, it's a reaction. It's something your partner tells you. It's like, the thing, the crutch, the void, the fucking vice. And this is your invitation. This is the subtle whisper from the universe. The fact that you're listening to this, that you and I, so, we connected here in Bali, like all these synchronicities have happened for this podcast to happen, for someone to listen to it, to receive that subtle whisper from the universe to go, wow, maybe I should look at, why I have this dependency on these things to make, or a relationship to feel good, or why I feel anxious or reactive in relationship, or why I feel so overwhelmed and stressed and like nothing is ever enough in business. This is the invitation. This is the whisper. Because you can change from a place of pain and suffering and desperation, or inspiration, or from a place of choice. Because when it comes to the hero's journey, we are always receiving subtle invitations and callings to adventure, to go on our own hero's journey. And most people wait until the universe is screaming at them, or they get hit by the truck, to then listen. And this is me speaking from losing relationships, losing a lot of money, from me, either achieving something and getting to the end of it and then wishing I could go back and tell people, hey, this isn't the path, this isn't the way. Like, I've been down that road, and, people don't have to. And also, who is it for me to say people what road is that they can or can't go down? That's up to them. That's part of their journey. And if I didn't go through some of my karmic paths and journeys, I wouldn't be here today sharing what I'm sharing.
What was some of the biggest absolute blow ups in your face?
Relationship.
What was that?
I'd been in the personal development space for close to a decade now. And I went through a relationship where, I'd done the work, I'd invested hundreds of thousands of dollars on myself, on my journey, all of it. Intellectually, like, I understood trauma, I understood healing, I understood personal growth, personal development, I understood business. But beneath all of that was still this little boy. He was yearning for something outside of him to feel good. He was yearning for a relationship to soothe him and regulate him and support him emotionally, right? And then it took for me to be so dependent on that, where I got into a relationship with someone who was emotionally unavailable. And here's the thing, that's what we do because that's what was familiar to me, right? What I thought was love was emotional unavailability. I didn't know the difference between true love and someone who is emotionally unavailable. So that emotional unavailability that I experienced in childhood, that's emotional abuse. That is actual emotional abuse. Over a subtle, over time, it's very subtle, but to not have it reflected back to you, your core emotional needs of love, nurturing, caring, connection, that's emotional abuse. And if that's what you think is normal and familiar to you, you would then get into a relationship where that's normal and that's familiar. Now, in that situation, the little boy within me got super activated, and he returned to the survival strategies that he used as a boy to get his needs met, his survival needs met of love and connection. We will do everything in our power to get our core emotional needs met. We will become whoever we need to be to get those needs met. And what it took for me to be in a relationship where my sole source of love, which was this woman, this relationship, for her to physically abandoned. Like I got home one day from the gym, she was packing her stuff, she was going. She couldn't do it anymore. It was too much, it was too overwhelming, right? And you can probably now see how when I shared before earlier in my story of the little boy who felt like he was too much for people, I didn't receive those subtle signs over time because I thought this emotional unavailability was normal. So what I thought was normal was this person who was out of arm's reach. That's what was familiar to me. And I lost myself in that because I felt what was normal to me based on childhood was in order to be loved, you have to prove yourself. You have to overextend yourself to get your emotional needs met. And in doing so, you also have to minimize yourself as well. So you're not too much. So in doing so, I completely lost myself, lost touch of who I am as a man. And in that, my business was suffering. Everything was just going downhill. And it took for that sole source of my love and connection to be stripped away from me, for my heart to break, to crack open. But it wasn't that, it wasn't my heart breaking and cracking open from that relationship. It was my heart breaking and cracking open all the grief that had been caked around it based on this little boy who had to protect his heart because it wasn't taken care of in childhood. Does that make sense?
Makes perfect sense.
there.
Dude. It makes perfect sense. And
Yeah.
I think I was just very fortunate to find my wife who kind of like realigned me, was like, like this shit's not okay. Like the way that you're acting, the way you're doing, it's not okay. And she like helped me kind of like walk through that process and kind of identify that in me, being like, you're too much like this, you're too much like that. And even give me kind of more tactical examples. It's almost like seeking approval, permission, approval continuously in microcosm examples. And almost looking for acceptance, right? So I'm extremely lucky to the position I'm in because like my wife never quantifies our quality of a relationship based on a success externally. So like we got together, I was super broke, she was super broke. It hasn't changed the dynamic of the relationship. She's super proud, and she's really proud of like what we've got to, what we've built together, and how she supported me. But it's never changed the nature of the relationship. And we talk about this regularly. How like we don't need the cash.
Yeah.
We don't need them. We don't need the house. We just need a few of our dogs hanging around and a bit of chicken and rice.
And that's why you have money.
Exactly. And that's why it's opened it up to be like much more of exploration. But what's important here is that I kind of met a woman who was able to almost improve me in that regard. Yeah. Because I had been in like destructive relationships in the past. Yeah. Whereby it was like, okay, that person that I had been running from is who I attracted, which messed me up in a certain regard because I was always, and it wasn't the person messed me up, it was just the habit that had messed me up. And I think as I gave up alcohol and gave up partying, that put us on a new path. And I was able to kind of fine tune it from there. Now I wanted to ask you about the support mechanism. So surely not all romantic support is bad, right? Like surely there's a component of having a romantic partner that helps and aids the pursuit that you're on. So how do you draw that distinction between someone who is dependent but who is actually supportive?
Yeah. To be in relationship is two things. It's called relational reciprocity. Right? To be in relationship, it's giving and receiving. It's this dance of being in the middle. Now, to be in relationship is to be dependent on someone and to allow yourself to be dependent on someone, and also to be independent. Right? So here's the thing. Here's how this becomes an issue is when we don't get our core emotional needs met in our dependency stage in childhood, we get stuck in a state of survival where as an adult, we become dependent on relationships or overly independent on relationships because that's our map. That's our embodied sense of what relationship is. We don't know what healthy connection is because we didn't have that safety. So this is how we become adult children in relationship who are seeking to have those core emotional needs met through a relationship as an adult. And until we actually go back and you learn how to hold that boy who didn't get the love that he needed, right? You learn how to really hold yourself in that, where you can be solid in your own frame of energy as a man, while also allowing yourself to depend and rely on a partner as well. So yes, it's both. It's being able to depend and rely on someone, right? That's what relationship is.
Yeah.
And this comes back to, this is what attachment styles are. If you've ever heard of attachment styles, we've got anxious attachment, we've got avoidant attachment, we've got disorganized attachment. So those are the styles. Those are the strategies. So our attachment styles are the strategies that we developed in childhood to either keep love at arm's length, to create distance, to protect our heart, right? Or the strategies that we developed to gain closeness and connection. So the anxious is, think of like reaching out energy. Like I'm dependent on you to fulfill something that's missing within me. Right? There's something inherently missing within me. I feel that at my core, there's something missing. And this is where, at the core of it, growing up throughout childhood, throughout the rest of a man's life, he just feels this deep core sense of loneliness. That's where it comes from, is this love that he didn't have reflected back to him. So that's the anxious. And then the avoidant is, love was such a painful place, right? Where he was either shut down, ridiculed, criticized, passive aggressiveness, right? Or he was either loved and then he was met with like harsh energy or whatever. Or he didn't receive the emotional connection that he needed through his parents having a calm, regulated nervous system, right? Because as children, we're communicating nervous system to nervous system. That's how we communicate with our caregivers. So one quote on that is that your ability to regulate and soothe your nervous system and your emotional capacity in relationship is directly correlated to your parents' nervous system and their ability to be with their own emotions. So take a look at what you experienced in childhood and then think about how that then has reflected within your nervous system, because that's your only representation of emotional regulation and connection, because that's what your nervous system was first and foremost connected to in childhood.
Dude, that's crazy.
Yep. So coming back to the attachment styles, this is where when we become wounded in those stages, this is where we don't allow ourselves to depend on a partner, right? And they will feel that. They'll feel that there's something that's blocking me loving you. There's something around, like you're not letting me fully in, right? Or it's the other way around, where it's like they have zero boundaries and it's just
a shit show.
Yeah, a shit show. So yes, in relationship, there is a healthy level of support of actually allowing yourself to depend on a partner, to depend on them because you're also independent within yourself. So it's what we call interdependence. It's the middle. Now, there's that. And then there's also, especially for men, a level of emotional support that they go to their brothers for, not their partner. When a man brings his problems, his challenges, his frustrations constantly to his partner, and he's leaning on her emotionally for emotional support because he doesn't know what to do with the overwhelm or the frustration of his business not going the way he wants it to go, right? Think of the energy of like a pillar leaning on another pillar. How's your partner supposed to lean and depend on you emotionally as a man, right? If you don't have that solid frame of energy within yourself. Like I said, it's the ability to, in a healthy way, rely and depend on your partner emotionally. And there's certain things that you bring to the men. There's certain things that you sit in circle with other men and discuss with them. And whatever comes up for you in that, yes, you can bring the awareness of that to your partner, but you're not bringing the problem to her for her to try and solve.
The majority of my guests run content businesses. They've used content as the main element of their business to drive more revenue and build their influence online. We've been doing this through a podcast for many years. We have many guests, clients, and even customers use a podcast as their main source of driving more revenue for their business and building their influence online. And we're offering a handful of spots to book in a call with our team to learn how you, yes, you, can leverage a podcast to generate more revenue for your business and drive your influence online. Many of our clients and customers start from nothing, but each one of them are action takers and they want to learn more about how to build a podcast and a brand right around their business. So if you want to learn more and you're really interested in building a podcast, check out the link down below and book in a free call with our customer success manager, and he will guide you into how you can build and generate more revenue from your podcast this year.
Can you give examples? Because I've worked on that deliberately, just for a bit of context. I think in the beginning of my business, like many years ago, me and Elise lived in Singapore together. And it was just kind of me and her. And I'd be like, Jesus Christ, like this is on fire, this is on fire. And then it would kind of almost be like the boy that cried wolf. It would kind of it would just kind of come to the point whereby it was one, not valuable for me, and then two, not valuable for her because she doesn't understand, right?
Yeah.
Whereas I joke saying people don't need co-founders, they need better friends. Because like in theory, if you just have a good network of guys, or we have a very good team, that if something explodes, I get on a call and I'm like, right guys, this is fucked, but we'll do X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
And then often to my wife, then if she's like, oh, how is X come along? I'm like, yeah, it's fine, whatever. And I've found that I have developed a lot more with extreme scenarios, like just really extreme things that explode all the time, than my wife, because I just carry more responsibility in terms of just like literally like people that are that work with me, money that we manage, everything. That a lot of times I feel now that I've just kind of got to the point whereby things just kind of go up my back. I'm like, right, because I've spent many years doing this, and I have scars all down my back and right through my face of betrayal, everything. That now if I was to explain some of these things to Elise, she would blow up. But I'm like, it's chill. It happens. It's happened. It will happen again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's think of it from the lens of that what you shared. If you're in relationship as a man and you're bringing to your partner this energy of overwhelm, stress, frustration, this closed offness where she can't feel you and she can feel this. And here's the thing, when you don't have the support of brotherhood and men to bring your challenges and your frustrations to, because when you don't have that, you'll carry that on your shoulders and you'll bring that into your relationship, and she'll consistently feel this sense of closed offness or overwhelm. And how it typically plays out is her request for quality time will be overwhelming for you because you have all of this stuff on your shoulders. Or her request for intimacy or connection, or her request for, let's just say intimacy and connection, will be too much. It's like, I've got so much shit going on right now, I can't even think about that. Or she can just feel that you don't actually have the capacity to hold my emotional expression. So the most toxic trait, I like to say the most toxic trait of the masculine is him expecting his partner to hold him and support him emotionally, yet he doesn't have the capacity within his nervous system to meet her basic needs of creating safety.
Are you familiar with Sahil Bloom's work?
No.
Dude, be an awesome guy for you to connect with.
Yeah.
Happy to do the intro as well. You'd get on really well.
Yeah.
I know Sahil. Have you seen Sahil at all?
No.
Oh, dude.
Yeah.
He has a new book called 5 Pillars of Wealth,
which
is like the full spectrum of health, wealth, relationships, time, and freedom. He's a friend of mine, which I'm very proud to say. He's very, very famous. And the reason why he's famous is because he's he was in San Francisco working in private equity or across America or whatever, and then he moved all the way back to the East Coast of America to be with his family because he wanted to value time, and he knew that his parents were getting older and the amount of time he's going to spend with them decreases. And he does a lot of analysis of time. So basically quality time over quantity of time. So you could be with your partner for 15 minutes a day, but that time is super quality spent where you're, you know, capturing these needs and you're addressing these needs so that you can go off and be in an office for 22 hours a day. But it's about understanding the parameters of it, and then also like what is a wealthy life in the context of everything that you want. So it speaks a lot to this, because I think, as I explained to you in my house, like I have tried to engineer this, because this openness and attentiveness and conscientiousness was always missing for me until I had learned a lot of this concept. Because it was, the fact was, just because me and Elise worked from the same room didn't mean we were connecting.
Yeah.
So that's why I have the dungeon, which anyone who knows me or my podcast, like, it's like an iconic thing, which is like I go into a room that's black and I leave when it's over. And that could be, I can take breaks, right? But I leave when it's over. And then I go back and me and Elise are, okay, what's going on? She has this issue with the dogs and so on. And I'm just there. And I might only be there for 25 minutes and I'll go back in the room for 2 hours. But then when I come out, I'm in this. And I've tried to put those extreme hard borders on, like, the work is in the office, or the dungeon as I call it, and now we're talking about X, because I have to do that. Because if I don't, then I'm just like, oh, I'm on Slack and someone's pissing me off, because that's what happens. Or I'm on my laptop, someone's saying something that's gone wrong. So it's about having those extreme harsh borders. Now, he doesn't talk about that, but I have to add that on me, because I've seen this seep in and out.
Yep.
And like, I famously don't have a SIM card. You can't contact me if I'm not on my laptop. It's not possible. I don't have data. I don't have a SIM card. I don't have a phone number. I don't have an email address on my phone. You can't contact me. So I have to get to my laptop to be able to contact me. And I'm always on my laptop. But that's because when I'm working, I'm working. Yeah, so like, that's an indirect way. It's boundaries, right? It's boundaries with everything.
Yeah, and that's more of an on a like individual level. Absolutely, it's like you being super intentional with your energy, and that's like masculine self-leadership 101.
Because I think what's ironic is, I think Elise wasn't familiar with this.
Yeah,
and she was just kind of chilling. Like, she could be on the couch and I might come, we might be working, and she didn't really conscientiously think about this.
Yeah.
But I'd observed, it wasn't an issue, but I had observed that we weren't spending quality time together.
Yeah.
So I have very intentional rules, which is like, if we're at the you'll find this interesting. I'll tell you this. So I grew up in a chaotic house, bro. Chaotic. And I lived in the middle of nowhere. That a big thing, it was so fucked up. A big thing that would happen is that people in my house would play music really loud or play the TV really loud to create this sense of atmosphere. Super fucked up. So then when someone came in, it was like, oh, there was something going on in the house that you weren't part of. My parents were never together. They were separated, but we were too poor to get a divorce. So they were separate side of the house. So what that had meant for me is that I had grown up resenting television. Because it was this noise, distraction. So now me and my wife, we have lunch together, breakfast together, dinner together, no TV, no sound, no phone. So as you came into my house earlier and you were like, dude, this is the quietest place ever. There's no sounds in my house because we have to converse. And my phone will be in the office as well. And when we're having dinner, like, I'm like, how is the dog doing? How is this doing? How is this doing? And I'm genuinely interested in it. And then I get up and I'm like, I'm gone and I gotta go. You know, and it's because I've had those like things from childhood that, you know, if I hear the TV on in the background or something, to me it triggers those things.
Yeah,
which meant, you know, pushing people away and so on and so forth.
Yeah, the things that we value most in life now were based on the void that we had in childhood. So the things that we didn't have in childhood typically become the things that we value most. So that's very much where like our highest values derive from.
Is that why money would be a highest value for
Yeah,
people?
for sure. For me, learning and growth, you know, something growing up was learning was not my strong suit in the schooling system that was. And because that was something I didn't have because I felt dumb, I felt like I I couldn't learn. I felt like there was something wrong with me. It's become one of my highest values, where every single morning I'm either reading or now I'm learning and I'm growing. It's like my highest, it's like the thing that lights me up the most is learning and growing and developing like my knowledge and my skill sets. And yeah, it's because that was a big void for me in childhood.
You'll find this interesting. So I was very sick as a child. I was like chronic asthmatic. So I was always out of school. And because I was out of school so much, when I was in school, I obviously missed I miss everything. Missed my ABCs, missed everything. So I was termed like extremely dyslexic as a child. So I was in like a separate class, which is why I hated to go in school. So I'd never go to school, all this kind of stuff. And I was always labeled with that. And then that mark of being dyslexic was handed into every class, every high school I went to. My high school exams, I was told not to do them because I was too dyslexic, that I should have someone who writes my stuff. I write every single day. A lot of people will message me asking for my copywriter in my company. I will tell them it's me. People ask, how do I send 7 emails a week? I write an email every day. I say, it's me. I've written every sales copy myself, every single thing, every LinkedIn post, every Instagram bio, I write myself because I love writing, and now, lo and behold, I'm good at it.
Yeah.
Right? So I literally say that I am actually not dyslexic. I was told I was dyslexic, and then everyone just believed it.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And
Yeah.
I'll wake up on a Saturday, I'll write for 2 or 3 hours on a Saturday. And it's just super ironic, right?
Yeah.
Because and this is quite interesting, is because even when I was 20, 21, 22, I did software engineering in school, a variation of it. I wouldn't do the applications for companies because I felt I couldn't write.
Yep.
And even in jobs, I wouldn't write requirements for X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
And then it was only when I built my business and my podcast, actually, it was funny enough, because I started, dude, you'll find this funny. I started a podcast because I thought I couldn't write. And then I ended up writing every day to promote the podcast. Okay. So then when I built my business, I was like, oh, this is fucking, I like to write. So as you said, everything that happens in your childhood, it comes up in some sort of experience in your adulthood.
And this right here is exactly why men fear healing, or they don't want to heal because they feel that they're going to lose that drive. They're going to lose that determination. They're going to lose that part of them that was built from, because that was built from a wound. Right? Everything that's gotten you up to like the writing, the podcasting, that was from a core wound, emotional wound. And men think that if they heal, they're going to lose that drive to build the thing that got them to where they are. But the thing is like, and this is coming back to what I mentioned before around either like sitting on the beach or building the business. Men think that if they heal these core emotional wounds, or reconnect with these unmet needs that they didn't have in childhood, they think they're going to just be like, oh, I don't need anything. I don't need anyone. I'm just going to go lay on the beach every single day. Like, I'm good. No, you get to receive the gifts that you've developed along the way, the gifts that you've cultivated and received because of the man that you had to become, because the man you are today is exactly the man that you were placed on this earth to be. There are no coincidences. But those strengths that you've gained and developed, no longer, you can integrate those, but no longer from the fear or the unresolved trauma or the wounding or the guilt or the shame that's beneath that. So it no longer has to be from a place of pain and suffering and from shame and from this unconscious need to do something from a place of survival. Now it gets to be done from a place of deep meaning, purpose, and inspiration, where it's got more depth to it. So
you become better as a result. And that's the big unlock, right? I think it's everything that's happening. I have a ton of work I still need to do, and I'm actively working on it and everything. But at the same time, the work that I have done has allowed me to get to different levels and has allowed us to, it was interesting. I was at Will Brown's mastermind on Sunday, and at the end of the day, it was 9 o'clock at night. He went around the table and he was like, what do you want to achieve? And I wrote about this in my 29 lessons from turning 29 years old. I've said that I've achieved absolutely everything that I've ever wanted to do in my 20s already. Now I'm simply playing for bonus points, and everything else from here is amazing. I'm married, I have an amazing wife, I'm fit, healthy, I've made more money than I ever thought I would ever do. And because I had a goal that I wanted to make $1 million by the time I was 30. And I think I hit it when I was 27. Right. So I think it was like 3 years ahead, even though that's not how I think. But now it's all like bonus points from here on out, basically. And that's not to say that I'm not ambitious. So when I said it to Will, who's made like $35 million online, he thought about it. And then I thought, did he think that I was kind of checked out? And he came back at the end of the night and he was like, you know what? I'm actually the same. He's like, I got everything that I need. Now I'm just playing like creativity. So it's creativity, fulfillment, enjoyment. I still have a ton of stuff I need to work on, 100%. But I think at the very least, if you can think about it through that lens, that you will therefore start building better things. Like, all right, let's fucking go. And it's allowed me to take better risk.
Yep.
Even in the business. Bro, simple things like this. Spending money to make money, spending money on education, spending money on ads, spending money on better content, spending money on travel, right? As in like going somewhere for a podcast. I just like, all right, what do we got to do? Okay, it's like 3K, let's go. Right? Because before I'd be like, oh no. But it's just changed my relationship to risk, opportunity as someone who is risk on as an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
It's allowed me to take more calculated risks, not just aimless risk,
Yeah.
which I would argue that if you don't do the work, you take aimless risk.
Yeah.
Right?
And when you don't do the deep inner work, as you know, in the way that you have, like imagine if you were still building your business or creating what you're creating, if you didn't actually lean in and resolve a lot of that unresolved trauma that you experienced in childhood. Yeah. Like that also I'm sure it's played a big, and I'm sure it has it.
It has, because I hate to say it, but which is also true, but the things that happened to me as a kid is the reason why I'm a good entrepreneur.
Yep.
You know, I can be a savage. I can be extremely ruthless. I can be extremely clinical. Like, as you've seen, like, you know, we've built a good relationship. You can see I'm like extremely numbers orientated, high logic, high on like competency because of that. But then I've tried to reshape that and be like, all right, let's fucking go. Let's use it in the right way. So like, that's allowed me to get to a very strong point, but not look back with fear.
Yeah.
Because like, bro, I've been faced with it. Like, I've been hitting the head over it. As I said, it's like, I call it the born identity. Walking through the town, getting hit with all like trauma bombs or like PTSD bombs.
Yeah.
But like, dude, actually sitting in it. And then also avoiding it at times. Like, I was going to run ultras in Vietnam.
Yep.
And then I got dengue and it swiped me out.
Yep.
So yeah, I've done the avoidance. I've done everything. And I'm not saying this is if I've done 100% not. But it's a good reminder for people to know that I've done a little bit of work and it's helped me tremendously. So if you were to sit with you, do a lot more work, that would help you with an exponent. And we talk a lot about leverage on my podcast, asymmetrical returns. That has an asymmetrical return.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
So that's what's funny, right? It's not about input output. It's about input equals 100x output.
Yep. Absolutely. What you just shared then around the childhood and how you've become so analytical and clinical, or in your head, and like being a really good problem solver, or being really good at seeing the threats or the, you know, the potential, like all the tiny, small, little intricate things that most people don't see. Beneath, like that right there is preventing a man from being in his heart. And that disconnects him from his felt sense and people feeling him. When he's so caught up and stuck in his head, you can feel that disconnection between his head and his heart. People want to feel you. The reason I blew up on social media is because people could finally feel me. They could feel the essence of my soul. The most successful musicians in the world, you can feel their soul in the music. And it's about bringing that soul back into your work, because no one will do it better than you. No one will do it better than me, right? But when people try and do it as you or just like you, they're being inauthentic to themselves, and you can feel that they're disconnected from their soul, their own unique essence. So that's what will happen is when you're so caught up in your head, because what happens is we actually become decapitated from the head down, From the chin down, we become decapitated. What I mean by that is, as humans, we do everything in our power to avoid feeling pain.
Makes sense.
And if your emotional expression, your emotional experience was a painful place to be in childhood, you'll disconnect from it. So men, they disconnect from the chin down. They have no fucking clue what's going on in here at any given moment. And because they're unaware of that, they're disconnected from their intuition. They're disconnected from their deeper truth of like what it is they know deep down in their gut, where they can live from that place.
I'd love to share with you a newsletter I wrote on Saturday, like afterwards, and you can like say it's right or wrong, but like I would say that a component of someone who's going to smash it or like inevitably going to win is someone's desire or someone's ability to stay in the pain threshold for as long as possible. So there's a famous ultra runner called Courtney Del Water. She calls it the pain cave. And she goes into the pain cave when she's running 250-mile races. She actually goes blind from the dehydration and she still runs because she's able to stay in that like pain threshold. And then I can get the line for you, but specifically how I wrote it was, pain was like time in the moment multiplied by the rate of revelation or iteration, whichever, to get better. And then that is quantified by pain. And then the pain then is equal to the outcome. Because like I've worked with just a lot of entrepreneurs. I you know, some of your famous like YouTubers, we do their back end. And like, I can tell you like the person is different depending on where they are to go to sit with problems and pains and delayed gratification, everything. You see it, right? You just see it, just appears, right? And I think like that's just been a very big thing for me, is the fact that maybe it's because of my past that I'm able to go sit with something that's so painful for so long. But then I don't think that's also true because, you know, someone in a third world country who doesn't have a lot of resources also has a lot of pain,
Yeah.
but in a different method.
Yeah. So this is where I'd ask someone for what purpose and from what place are you doing it from?
Funny you said that, because I said it's from the purpose of an asymmetrical return.
Yes.
It's because if you worked at a job that was terrible and it made you miserable and painful, then you would just be like, fuck this, I'm out. But if you're doing it to build, I'll give an example, to build a startup, like a tech startup, is the ultimate highest form of leverage, because in theory, the guy that built Uber or like Elon Musk, if he builds Tesla over 10 years, that has the highest form of leverage because it has the highest form of multiple. Whereas as someone who's working a job, no, obviously, right? So that's why, that's actually a point that I made specifically, which was, for us as business owners, there is an infinite upside, which I find very difficult to see why people who commit to the game don't stay in the game.
Yeah.
I find it, I always talk to people about this, but I find it very difficult to resonate with people who don't do the work, who have committed to this lifestyle. You know, they have a business, they have employees,
Yeah.
and they're not doing the work. I find it very hard to understand why that is.
Because it's about them. They make it about them. And here's the thing, when you're, I believe, when you're on mission and you're on purpose with what it is that you're supposed to be doing here on this earth, that's got something to do with either helping the planet or helping other people in some way. It's not about you anymore. This is where you become selfless.
Yeah.
This is where you transcend self. It's not even about you anymore. It's about the people that you're here to help and impact. That's why I wake up every fucking day. It's not about me. It's about the generations that have walked behind me and the ones that are to walk in front of me, you know, and what it is that I'm here to leave, this lasting legacy, and the ripple effect that I'm here to create in this world. I know it's beyond me. And there's a podcast I did with your good friend, Tom, and I actually spoke about this where I had a plant medicine journey, so where I had a direct conversation with God. That's probably quite a big thing to throw out there for most people. But you can go listen to that if you want to hear that journey. But in that, it was very, very clear why I'm here. It's not about me. I am a vessel. I'm an instrument of something that's greater than me. And that's why, dude, I shared with you, I legit had barley belly yesterday. I'm here doing a podcast. Like it's beyond me. Like, I'm here to share my message. I'm here to show up every fucking day and do what I need to do. from that place and not from the place of I need to prove myself. I need to prove myself. I need to be good enough. I'm not enough yet. It's not enough yet. It's from a place of, yeah, and I'm the same. Like I've got everything I could want and more financially right now. Like I don't have to.
You want to.
I want to,
It's a big
and I get
decision.
to.
And
Yeah.
that's the big, if you read 10x easier than 2x, like there's a whole paragraph on needs versus wants. If you need something, it's from anxiety, insecurity, you'll take the shitty client, you'll do the bad work, you'll cut corners, you'll fuck someone over. If you want it, it inspires enthusiasm, creativity, an infinite game approach.
Yep.
Then it's like, all right, let's try this thing. And it wasn't until I had done some of that work, and also I have to say that until I've achieved some sort of financial success,
Yeah.
to be able to play cards like that, because
Yeah.
James Kemp taught me about this, and he just says he just experiments. He builds things, he runs email campaigns, he just looks at it like a scientist, and he's like, that's funny that it didn't work. Let's try this one. It's funny that it did work. Let's look at that. And I think he's done insane amount of work. Be a good guy for you to connect to it. He was divorced. He went through an extreme divorce. He took care of his kids after the divorce. Apparently, there was lots of things going on. And then he had to spend 2 years rewiring all his hardware. Why he felt like he was always chasing. And now he's making 300K a month with one employee at 97% margin.
Yeah. I know of him. I don't know him.
Speaking of mastermind, bro.
Oh, amazing. And I can almost guarantee that he's done some inner child work in some way, in some form,
Yeah.
for him to have that shift and transformation where he got to a point that his life was built upon the foundation of, and now he's completely switched things where it's like, now he gets to live more on purpose and on mission, where it's not from that place anymore. And yeah, one thing I wanted to touch on there around, what were we just speaking about before, James?
Needs versus wants. And acting from that position of I need this or I want this.
Yeah,
You said I have
right.
everything.
We need, or it's important for someone to fully own where they're at in their season of life right now. When my business wasn't making any money, I needed money. Like I was operating from a place of survival. And when we look at if you go look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? The first is safety, survival, right? And once we get out of survival, then we can get into self-actualization. Yeah. And this is like that's the spiritual journey in business. And within business, we can get to that point of self-actualization where it's like, yeah, I can try things now. I can like have more freedom and flexibility with what I do, where I spend money.
Better. And it makes things better, bro.
Yes.
I always say that like entrepreneurship is a journey of self-discovery disguised in a path of profitability. Because it makes things actually better when you do it that way. And it's ironic because I had you'll find this interesting. I had limiting beliefs of bringing people together and doing events and doing dinners and everything. And I always know that I should do something when I have internal resistance, but then I know on the external, I'll not be good at it, but I can do it. So I'll give an example. That's how I started my podcast. I was like, I should do this, I should do this, I should do this. And it was that driving force that made me, when I didn't want to do it, to do it. And then I started to do this with client dinners. You'll find this interesting. So clients who are completely disconnected, these are done for you clients, they don't know each other. I would bring them together in Dubai, in New York, in Bali. And then I was like, whoa, this is amazing. Then we started running masterminds. Then we ran our last one. And then I had a lot of resistance over running our next one. And I was like, I don't know, can I do it? I don't know, can I do it? And then we started doing it and we started getting really good feedback from it.
Yeah.
And it's always that point whereby you think it's not going to work when it's like, okay, that's when you should be doubling down.
What was the limiting belief?
I heard this from my public speaking coach, is that when you say things like and right, and you have all these filler words, it comes from a place of insecurity in school. That you were so afraid of asking a question and the teacher not responding that you would fill in the word. I have that sense of insecurity about when I start something, because I used to think that if I started a program, it'd have to be full on the first day and everyone would think I'm a loser if I'm not. But then I'd learned that, because I run a lot of programs, bro, I'd learned that customers have an inverse relationship to what you want. You want loads of people in your program, they want no one. They want just them. They want one or two. So that'll give me a lot of peace to know that if I run a mastermind and one person shows up, they're going to have the best weekend of their life. 3 days with me and my entire team.
Mm.
And then we have cracked the company masterminds whereby we bring our people and I'll do it. But I wanted to try something with guests. And because I'm, paying my guests, I wanted to make sure that had a good, a good guest list, or good guests of people. And then I had the fear again being like, what if I bring these people and then no one comes?
Yeah.
And then we had ran it and then everyone was like, yeah, this is sick. Let's go.
Yeah.
So again, it's always me thinking on the counter of being that kid in school who put up his hand and then everyone laughed at.
And see, like that one core emotional wound shows up in so many different ways and different forms, and it will still show up in different ways, but there's levels to it now.
There's levels to
Yeah.
it because, when we had our dinner the other night, me and Elise showed up at 6:50, dinner was at 7, and Elise was like, what if we're the only person here? We're going to be like the Pablo Escobar meme, him sitting on the bench. And I was like, don't worry. I was like, it's chill. They're going to come. Because I'm so used to doing it, And she was like, I don't think anyone's going to come. Did you make sure you put the right restaurant? And I was like, chill. They're going to come in 10 minutes. And 5 minutes later.
Dude, there was so many people there. It was overwhelming.
Exactly,
Yeah. Yeah. But like that's it. Like those core emotional need, those core wounds that we experience in childhood will continuously show up in so many different ways, in different forms and different levels. So you don't just do the healing once. That little boy who experienced what you experienced in childhood is a part of who you are. That's never going to disappear.
Good point.
And it's an integration of that. It's a welcoming of it. When we go, yeah, fuck that. Like, I don't need him. When we push that younger part of us away, whatever we resist will persist. And that pressure, that weight will be heavier. Instead of going,
That's a good point.
hey, hey, little Darren.
Yeah.
See you, brother. How are you, brother? How are you? And like, and holding that younger part of you in what it was that he needed in that moment, which was, and what you'll experience is a sense of safety in your nervous system to go, oh, cool. The charge is gone, where you don't have to hold that unnecessary weight on your shoulders of the pressure of that boy, worried about things going to fuck up or no one showing up.
Big thank you, brother. This is amazing.
Thank you.